Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world joining us from. I'm Syed Zaidi, and I am Deputy Incident Lead at Sophos in Canada, doing incident response across the globe. And we are here to talk about how you can actively defend against the pre-ransomware and ransomware attacks. We're going to talk in few sections. We're going to bring out the ransomware insights and latest trends. Then we'll discuss about the pre-ransomware and ransomware attacks and how you're going to respond to these attacks. And lastly, we will wrap up the section with takeaways, summaries, recommendations on how you can take the stock and much better strategy while responding to these type of attacks. All right, get started now. Okay, so first of all, uh, I want to set a scene here by explaining what the ransomware attack looks like. Like all about that threat actor comes in, they take your data, they encrypt the machines, and they destroy data as well. You may see all three of them, or you may see one of them. But anyhow, that is basically you are under the ransomware attack. How they basically demand payments in cryptocurrency. So you have to be aware of that beforehand. And most important thing is that how they are coming into your network, because that's something you need to figure out and work on. Like, for example, phishing emails, remote desktop protocol, vulnerability exploiting, compromised credentials, and brute force attack. Why we are discussing this? Because these kind of attacks causes a lot of disruption in business, as well as business reputation, as well as financial losses. So here we can see that out of all the major attacks in 2024, 59% of the attacks are ransomware incidents, which shows that ransomware remains a significant and growing threat. Root causes. There are no surprises that we can see here that top three are the ones which we most care about: exploiting vulnerability, compromised credentials, malicious emails. Root cause by industry. This is pretty important and interesting because there are no surprises here in terms of that oil and gas have the devices like IoTs, which are very hard to patch. And that's why threat actors love to exploit them. In government, you may see lots of devices which are on legacy operating systems and compromised credentials. Because of that, because they do password reuse, use those passwords on other platforms, and then threat actors can take those and launch the attack. And in IT and telecommunication industry, 7% of the attacks are through the brute force because of the things they like they patch things, they have good credentials, but still they are the target of the attackers. This slide basically shows all about that, you may feel that you are not the prime impact of the ransomware incident, because you may see, okay, that there are very few machines being encrypted. But you have to know that the threat actors have getting smarter and move to a targeted ransomware attacks. Rather they encrypt your whole network, create noise. What they do is they hit where it hits the hardest. Get into your ESXi, domain controller, Active Directory, which holds all of the servers and the sensitive data, and they encrypt and they leave. So you have to take care of that thing in mind, that if you have seeing a less impact, less noise, that doesn't mean that there's a less impact. Definitely they are onto something which they care about. Multi-extortion tactics. So in the last slide, we discussed about the targeted attack. Here we are discussing about targeted audience, because if you see the harassment, what they do is they want to have you pay ransom. So in case they see you can recover from backups, you have good backups. So what they do is they try to call your customers. They try to call your employees to, uh, harass you. So you have to be mindful here, and you have to make sure that you have a right team. You can say a legal team to address that, because you want to make sure that you address them appropriately. And any bad response here can be catastrophic. On the other side, we have DDoS attacks. Like we have seen several ransomware. What they do is, as soon as the timeline goes for the ransomware payment is about to be ended, they launch just attack against you. You can have several plans for that, but you can also speak with your ISP to counter that. Okay, so responding to an attack, but before we do that, we have to understand what an attack looks like. Because if you don't know you're under the attack, or if you don't recognize these factors, you are most likely not responding to that. The most important thing here I want to highlight that the encryption is at the very end. It's not the start of the attack. So basically, you have all these chances, which we will discuss, to stop the attack at the earliest stage. How they are coming in is the initial access. Once they have come into your network, they will try to discover. We will have some examples in the coming slide. Then we can discuss about those examples. But once they discover your network through some tools, they try to escalate their privilege to a domain admin, most commonly seen. And once they have that, they will move to a systems of interest. That is your domain controller, ESXi machine, the servers, which are your crown jewels. And once they have that, they will try to evade your defenses, because they know that will stop them. But one thing is important here is that they know that you have some defenses, and you will try to kick them out from the network. So they will make sure that they have persistence via some tools like Cobalt Strike, scheduled task, so they can come anytime if you kick them out. And once they have done all those goals, they will take your data, encrypt your machine, and ask for the ransom. So, pre-ransomware attack. This is something, this is not a category of the attack. There's no category like that. But we have to assume there that you are about to be hit by a ransomware attack. Because if you don't assume, and you think it's just a mere things happening in your network, it can be catastrophic. So you need to make sure that you understand that, take actions, and take strong measures. Because why? Because recently we have seen that ransomware attacks are like very quick, very less dwell time. We have seen in last few months that it took around 72 hours to from the initial access to the final ransomware attack. One of the prime example is the Hive ransomware, which used Screen Connect and launched the attack within 61 hours. They were being ransomed. Here, basically, we'll discuss about how the ransomware attacks looks like. So once threat actor have accomplished all their goals, they have knew about your network, where the data resided, they have broken your defenses. So now they will do the data exfiltration. I will use here the pointer to point out. So they will now use tools like rclone, magazine, etc., to take out your data, and then they will encrypt your machine as well. But this discussion basically will be incomplete if we don't have a 6 phases of incident response to discuss. And here we go. So these are the 6 phases of incident response, which we follow religiously while responding to threat actor attacks. And as the name says on top, the preparation phase is all about that you need to do before the attack happens. Because if you're not prepared well, you will be in problems while doing the incident response. All these sections, please keep in mind that we will discuss these all in the upcoming slides. Responding to an attack. The key goal of the incident response is to restore business, because you have to align your goals with the goals of the business leader, and they want to ensure that the business restore on time. But the main point is here is that you don't want the incident response loop that you are remediating, getting attacked again and again. So the effective containment and eradication depends on the identification and scoping. This is the key to the incident response. How well you identify, how well you scope is basically will help you in all the stages of the incident response cycle. Business leaders and technical leaders need to collaborate here, because there are some actions which needs business leaders' involvement. For example, network isolation involving cyber insurance, getting the incident response team engagement. All these things requires both teams to collaborate. Shared responsibility is all we know about. That if you don't work with different teams and share the responsibility, the response will not be as effective as you may believe. How you can prepare and recover effectively? So lots of cost involved to recover from the ransomware attack. For example, downtime cost, legal compliance cost, reputation cost, etc., etc. So you need to make sure that you have a plan to invoke that when you are hit by the incident. And so for example, you invoke your plan and you speak with your cyber insurance. So you have to have cyber insurance, because it will help you to minimize your cost of recovery as well as several other costs. You have to engage the incident response provider. Why? Because definitely you have failed to identify the attack. That's why basically you are doing the incident response. So you need a team who have the right expertise to work on that. But the problem is that when you go and approach incident response provider, they're already busy with other customers, and they give you, okay, you can work with us in 3 or 5 days, but you are in need of help. So the incident retainers can come very handy. What it will do is that, if you have them, that is the contract between you and that party, that if you are hit by the cyber attack, you will have a rapid response, and as well as you will have a predictable cost of what you can expect as a cost to engage the incident response provider. Resource allocation is very, very important, because you don't want that there's only one IT person or one IT manager handling all these cases. So you have to allocate resource accordingly. And communication is key in all these steps of the incident response. I will give you an example of a Sophos ransomware attack we all heard in the news. What happened is that as soon as they were hit by the ransomware attack on Thursday evening, the early hours of Friday, one of the employee shared the snapshot of the ransomware note on the Twitter, and that really made things bad. So you have to actively communicate with your employees before and after the incident. Tell them that if you have these things, train them that if you have seen these things, communicate only to the required stakeholders, and not share them publicly. Tools you should use for the effective response. So what happens is that you know we have several tools working in place, but when we are hit by the incident, we don't use them for the doing the response. So your EDR tool can be really helpful with detection and responding to an attack. Some EDRs like Sophos have journals which you can use OS query them and get lots of forensic goodness. Well-configured firewall can not only help you with detection of the attack, but as well as uncover if high amount of data is going out. Network segmentation can ensure critical assets are protected. For example, if you see that you are being hit on your ESXi machine, just close that network part to make sure that that is not being impacted completely. Threat actor nowadays use several defense evasion techniques to cover their tracks. For example, wiping logs and killing some services which can help to ensure logging. So centralized logging and auditing can help uncover those tracks and help to know about the root cause. In the next slide, we will have one more thing to discuss about. There are some tools like UEBA, DLP, and the visibility. So baselining is so important to uncover these sophisticated attacks. UEBA can help with you with the anomaly detection. This comes very handy when threat actor has the impersonated the only IT guy in the company, and you need to make a decision where this activity is legit or not. Data, everyone loves data. So threat actors loves to have data because that can be that can be very valuable. That's their key target. So during the incident, you can leverage the data from DLP to identify which sensitive data that actor have interacted with. And you can see, okay, they not have access any data. We have some leverage in case you want to take an other route. So for example, speak with legal and see if you have to do some notification like breach notification. As mentioned earlier on the slide 4, threat actors love to exploit vulnerabilities. And if you can find out what they are seeing, you can be one step ahead. Various tools available like Shodan, DNS Dumpster are available very openly on internet. Use them to find out all the open holes and block them. So now we are getting into a very interesting part, that how you can respond to this attack. First of all, kudos if you have detected the incident at the earlier stage, because if you are here on this pre-ransomware attack stage, this means you have done the detection at the very earlier stage. But how you're going to respond to that is all what matters the last. And the key advice is do not self-remediate. If threat actors see you disabling the domain controller or the domain account which they are using, they can speed up the attack. Our recommendation is to isolate network or opt for restricted network so you can protect your critical services as well as critical data. So once you are in this attack here and you have done a network isolation or network restriction, consult with your cyber insurance. You can see here that it has a B here. B means that all these decisions which have B requires the business leader involvement. And that's why it is very important that business and technical leaders should discuss and sit together while responding to these type of attacks. So once you have consulted with your cyber insurance, engage the incident response team, do the scoping of the incident with the help of the incident response provider. And then once you start the scoping, you will have to do the evidence collection from different hosts which are compromised, your firewall, and your other key servers. One of the prime steps, in all these steps is to, determine the initial access vector. That is the thing, basically, how threat actor have established the foothold into your network. So for example, they have used VPN to foot to get into your network. So, and there's no MFA on it. So you need to make sure that you block the VPN and have MFA installed during this phase. In next step, take good notes, record all the indicators of compromise. For example, C2 addresses, compromised credentials, ransomware binary, etc. Because this step of IOC identification and intelligence development will speed up the investigation, as you can use all these indicators of compromises to hunt across the enterprise. You need to make sure here that if the threat actor has able to access the sensitive data, because if they have done, you need to have one more step to do, which we'll discuss later. So once the scope has been determined, that is, you have all the compromised hosts, compromised accounts, C2s, what data they have access, it's time to take the action. And now we will do the eradication. How? Block the C2s, do global password reset, and if domain controller is compromised, go for the Kerberos reset as well. You may want to take a legal advice if sensitive data has been accessed, because there are certain legal and compliance issues which you need to take care of if they have accessed the data, not taken the data. So now you are in a recovery phase. And what you need to do is, first you have to validate the remediation, like what steps you have taken. So for example, if you have blocked C2s, make sure they are blocked. If you have removed persistence, make sure it's done. If you have put the MFA on your VPN, which was used as initial access, make sure it is properly implemented. And then we move to a restoration part. So this part where you have determined the scope of the incident, that is the incident scope determination, that will give you that date, that okay, at this date, we have the earliest attack being started. That date is something you have to consider, and then you can use that date. For example, it's 1st of May. So you want to make sure that you use restore points prior to the May 1st, and you have the option to restore from backups or rebuild your machines. Okay, responding to a ransomware attack. We have discussed all the steps before, but we will highlight some of the things which we have not discussed before in the prior slide. So for example, when you are responding to a ransomware attack, you may need to make sure that you identify the threat actor, because identification of threat actor is important, as this will help you to tailor your response. So for example, if you know it's Black Pasta, if you know it's Lockbit, you can do open source intelligence, see about them, what TTPs they use, understand their motive, and have the response ready for that. Sometimes ransom note reveals that information, but sometimes may not, and you have to dig more to find out about the threat actor. Determining the ransomware data exfiltration is very important. If sensitive data has been taken by the threat actor, you need to have the strategy to handle that. And in the last, the ransom negotiations. It's a gray area, but we will cover this part in the later slide. Network isolation. This is basically one of the pain points of the business leaders because they don't want to, disrupt their business. They want to be operational, and they basically sometimes may not have the proper understanding of the impact of this attack, and they are very resistant to the network isolation. But it all depends on the risk appetite you have. So if you believe you can continue your business even if under the attack, you have to see your risk appetite. Network isolation is pretty important if the risk is high. So for example, if you see threat actors moving very fast, or they are basically at the latest stage of the attack, that is ransomware encryption, you have to do the network isolation. It is time consuming and stressful, but the good thing is that we have something to counter that. That is predefined segmentation plans. What they are? So what you can do is basically you can have the plans, uh, work on before the incident. So this thing has to be the part of the incident response plan. Let's discuss about what it is all about. So you have the default configuration on all of your firewalls, on all of your switches, routers. But what you're going to do is that to make a restricted network configuration, you will list your critical assets and services which are essential for business, create a separate config file for all of the network entities on your routers, firewalls, switches. And once you are in the incident, it should not take more than 15 minutes to implement that. But note a very key point. It has to go via change management and needs robust testing. You cannot do this part during the active attack. You have to do this prior during when you are making your incident response plan. Okay, a controversial topic here about the ransomware negotiations, but I will start from the proof of life, like what it is, because based on my experience, every organization that has been hit by the ransomware attack should go for that, even if they don't negotiate for ransom. Because why? Because that proof of life contains the list of all the data taken by the threat actor. So if you have that list ready, you can see that if threat actor have accessed the data which you consider is sensitive. And sometimes when you receive the file, you will see, oh, they have taken nothing important. And that can be a very significant step in your business restoration. About ransom negotiations, if you are going that route, do the risk assessment, see how much funds you have the experts negotiations with you, because if you negotiate based on the data Sophos report, we can see that parties who do negotiate with proper expert involved, they pay less ransom and involve law enforcement. So what it means is that while you're paying payments, they may track that, and they can counter that, and cause the threat, catch threat actor. and what we have from the stock. So the first thing, very, very important, is that business leaders have to make sure that they understand and acknowledge the attack, or the response will not be as impactful as it required. Don't self-remediate. Take help of the experts. Predefined segmentation plan comes very handy as it helps to contain a threat as well as ensure business continuity. You can run tabletops because that will help you to identify the gaps you have, sit with experts, peers, and discuss what plans and what strategy you have against those of attacks. For example, if you take that route of tabletops, you may be able to learn, oh, you don't have MFA on your VPN, or you have weak passwords, and you can act proactively on that. Uh, and once you have gone through the incident, and you may have things which you have learned during that incident. So for example, if you have uncovered that you have weak passwords, have better password policies. If you see that you have a wider attack surface based on your open source intelligence, have it reduced, or close all the open holes which you consider are not important. Uh, During that incident response, you may have felt that you don't have the team which can help you to respond to these attacks on time. So have the manage that response team if you don't have the adequate resources, and uh, take that route. All right. So it's time for question and answers if you may have, and I will be available on Slack to answer your questions if you may have those questions after the presentation.